So far, we have just been talking about writing code, number of times, and so on. But truth be told, most of the times you not really want to repeat your code again, right? You don't want to maybe repeat if those kind of things, right? Maybe, for example, you had 100 line of code and you wanted to use it somewhere, and you actually have to rewrite that code again. That is so unbearable, right? This is where PHP functions come in. The real power of PHP comes from function, actually. PHP has more than 1000 built-in functions, and in addition, you can actually create your own functions, right? PHP, like we said, has over 1000 functions. I mean, inbuilt, the ones that already access that you can call them directly. And we have been using this in most of what we have been doing here. You have been seeing the implode, you have been seeing the print arrow, you've been seeing the echo, you have been seeing the print, and so many other things, right? These inbuilt functions are there that you can use, but imagine you do not know them and you want to define yours, or you just want something to learn, right? You can actually define your own functions. That tells us that PHP has inbuilt functions and user-defined functions. Now, just a recap, a function is a block of statement that can be used repeatedly in a program, meaning that you can just declare it once and use it over. A function will not execute automatically when the page loads. Definitely. Some of you did submissions in your assignments, and I saw you already advanced to the level of functions, but you actually defined your functions and did not call them. Truth be told, you that will be useless if you have functions that are not used, right? Once you define a function, it's always nice to call them. And functions will be executed by a call. Like we said, you always need to call them in order for it to be executed. That is some brief of functions, and I'll give you an example of a function here. You have function write message, and I put echo hello world, maybe function greet, then hi name, right? This is how a function is declared in PHP, right? Now you will want to actually take note of this syntax, right? The function starts with this keyword, the function, then the name of the function, then this brackets open and close. The things might come inside here, but we'll not talk about that for now. We'll talk about that in some minutes. You have now the block that should be executed within that function. I think we should actually do this handy. So I'm going to go into function and create a new simple function. I'm going to call that simple PHP, and we're actually going to declare a create function here so that you see how functions are used. So the function starts with the function keyword, then the name of the function, the grid, and the body of the function. So I can say echo right there, right? So this is our function, right? So we might use this in several places, right? For example, I will start I'll give the name, maybe name is equal to say Andrew again, and just to tell you that functions are used in several places. For example, I'll say if name is equal to Andrew, then greet, right? This is how functions are called, right? Just passing the function name. Now I am going to run this, and functions PHP simple.php. You see hi there, right? Because the name is Andrew. And I said if the name is Andrew, then I should call this function. I just wanted to let you know that functions can be called anywhere in your code, right? It can be called within another function. It can be called within some conditions. It can be called within loops and so on, right? So this is how a function is defined. This is an empty function. A function could have other things within. I'm going to cut this out for now and just call the grid function, which is still going to be the same. Sorry, semicolon, which is still going to be the same. That is how functions are declared in PHP. Now, we have just declared a simple function, but truth be told, most of the times your function will actually take in arguments, right? Arguments are what is passed within your function. Information can be passed to functions through arguments. An argument is just like a variable, right? They are specified after the function name inside the parentheses, just like what I told you. You can add so many arguments as you want in your function, and you just need to separate them with a comma. The following example has a function which has the first name in when we have your function here called family name, then it actually greets that family, right? So we have this. This is the function. The function name is family, family name, then the name, and then I kind of just greeting the person. So this will actually just print out the person's name, right? Now, uh, creating a different file called args.php. And I'm going to I just want to separate them so that when you access the code base, you don't have issues. So I'm going to call out this function, declare the function name, grid. I'm going to give the function name as grid, and I'm actually going to pass in an argument inside. Meaning I should pick the argument and grid. So I'm going to echo I name. Right. Now, this I want you to take note of this thing that I passed, this parenthesis or this curly braces. They are used when you want to concatenate a string with a variable in PHP. Okay, so if we create this name, sorry, if we create uh, Andrew, right, what is going to happen is that our PHP code is going to go through this function and check, did you pass in any argument here? Yes. Then it is going to actually use this high and then passing the argument that you passed. So if I actually do ask php ask php, we see hi Andrew. We did not explicitly say you should create Andrew here, but we passed in the Andrew as an argument. And if you notice, like we said, we can actually pass in many arguments, maybe age, and here I can say you are age years old, right? And that is still going to be printed, so that if I pass in Andrew and the age is 23, 3, 25, I'm going to actually, you see, hi Andrew, you are 25 years old. So functions could be empty, others could actually get in some arguments, as many as you want, and you need to make sure that you actually call these functions. Now, sometimes you will not want to actually just pass in these arguments without specifying the types. This is where we dive back to a certain statement that I made before, that PHP was loosely tied, right? Uh, Now, in the example that we used, I'm going to pass in something. Okay, in the example that we used, right, PHP automatically detected the kind of variable that we're passing in, right? But in some cases, we might have some issues. PHP 7 actually has something that has been added. Let me call it PHP 7 plus. Meaning that from PHP 7, you have this that was added, the function coupled with the type. of arguments that can be passed in. So type declarations were added. This gives us an option to specify the expected data type when declaring a function. And by adding the strict declaration, it will throw a fatal error if we don't pass in the type that we wanted. So we have a simple function here and something has added. Actually, you see the add number and then you see that we want to get an integer value, right? This is what they call typecasting in PHP, and you will want to use that in several cases. So I'll actually just uh, switch to that, and where were we? Let's go to functions and create a new file called type.php. And I'm going to do this. So we have our function here, and this function is going to be called add numbers, right? And I'm going to pass in one and two, right? And what I'm going to print out, I'm just going to echo let's see, number one plus number two. That's what our function does. For now, we haven't done anything different from what we've been doing. I'm going to call this function and pass in 12, and I'm going to actually pass in a string 12, right? Don't expect that will be printed here. If we actually print out this, you'll see some bullshit that will actually be printed. So types of PHP, and we have this. You actually get a non-numeric value encountered, but note we print out 24. How is that 24? So PHP actually goes through your string and finds in something that matches what you can add to this, but this is not what is supposed to be there, right? So you are supposed to specify the type of argument that you should pass in. That is where the strict type comes in, right? You use the declare strict type to one that is true to make sure that the actual type of arguments that you want are passed in. So if I come here at the top of my PHP and use this function strict, sorry, declare strict types equal to one, just a few minutes, as this in parentheses. And okay, now here now you can pass in the type of argument that you want, maybe an integer value, and immediately we did this, you see this is underlined, right? And you see expected type int but found string, right? If we try running this, we get a fatal error and we don't get the sum again because definitely PHP will no longer understand this, right? So you can pass in the type of argument you need in PHP functions after declaring this strict type function here to tell PHP that okay, my function needs this particular types and anything different from that should throw an error. So if I actually do this with the right types and I try executing this, you get our 35 here with no issues, right? So another thing you've learned is this strict types function, which passes in a boolean. This one stands for true. You should check the type of parameters, type of arguments that are passed into the functions. And when you're calling the function, the type of parameters that are passed in. Okay, that is it about the PHP being loosely typed and how to actually fix that problem. The next thing is that most of the times we'll not just want to print out values in functions, we want to return those values and actually use them somewhere. So PHP 7 plus, that is plus PHP 8, also supports the type declaration for the return statement. Like with other programming languages, Python and so on, it actually returns a type. To declare a type for a function, you can actually use the colon, right, to declare the type. Now I'm going to get into an example and you're going to understand that. So firstly, you can declare the type of argument that you passed in, and next you can declare the type of uh, a return that you want, the type of result that you want. Okay, so switching back to this, I'm going to call return types.php. I'm going to use this same thing, uh, go to return type and paste it there, and I say this function, I want this function to return an integer. So I pass in the column and I pass in the type that I want it to return, right? Something just now we when we do this, we need to make sure that we actually have the return here, return, right? That's it. So functions will not only print values, they can return the values. So now, truth be told, if I actually run this out now, we'll not actually see something to the screen, but something has been returned. And let's run it so you see. Add numbers, type, sorry, PHP return types.php. And you see nothing is printed out. But if I actually declare a variable, say sum, and I pass this and I try printing out the sum, you actually see that something is printed out, right? Same thing. So PHP can take arguments and you can declare the type of argument, and you can also declare the type of operation or the type of return or the type of value that you want your functions to return. Now I'm going to actually do a simple example here for what we've been doing so far. I'm going to say arithmetic, uh, PHP, and I'm going to go back to operators. No, that was logic and switch, right? I'm going to copy this and come back to our arithmetic.php and paste there. And in this case, I'm no longer going to actually do this over and over. So I am going to get the operator and I'm going to declare some simple functions here. Function add numbers, uh, one, two. I'm going to get this from the standard in again. Function add number, one, two, that returns a type of integer, return uh, 1 plus num 2, right? And I'm going to duplicate this for subtract. I'm using switch case. Let me get rid of this. Uh, Subtract. I'm going to get num1, num2, and should return an integer. I'm going to also declare a function called multiply. It's in the same arguments, num1 and num2, and returns an integer 2. So return 1 times 2, right? What did we have? Multiply. Having issues here. Sorry, num1. Okay, so we have these functions defined, and num1, 2, 2, right? We have these three functions defined, and we want to actually do some arithmetic. Say, we'll go back to our switch and get the standard in to our function, and we have the first number and the second number, and we're also going to get the operator. Just want to copy and paste this. Let's get our operator. We get rid of this, these things. Okay, our operator now. And for now, if we run this code, like PHP arithmetic PHP, we actually get num1, num2, the operator 1, and nothing happens, right? So after that, now we want to call these functions above from the operations we have here. So if I'll actually use the switch still, don't want to use switch, passing the operator, and then case 1, which is a sum, I should print add uh, add numbers, add numbers, add numbers, and then we have our num1 first and second, right, which is our num1 and num2. And I'm going to break out here, break. I'm going to duplicate this. Okay, subtract first from second. This is case 2, case 3, multiply first and second, right? I'm going to break. Okay, we are going to handle just this for now, and let's get our default. The operator was not passed in. Print valid operator. Okay, so we have these functions. We have simple function, add numbers, subtract, multiply, and we get the numbers from the standard in, and we want to compare, right? So we use a switch case, case 1 for sum, case 2 for subtract, case 3 for multiply. So let's run this and actually see how handy that is. Okay, so we have our first number 12, second number 15, and we want to get the sum, and you see 24 printed out because we've called this function add number, right? What do we have? 24 first plus second. Is it actually supposed to return 24? Add numbers first plus second. Let's run this again. Arithmetic.php 12, 14, and we have 24. Something is wrong. Num1 Oh, sorry, num1 plus num2. Our function was returning num1, and this is going to be minus. Yeah, so I think we are clear with that. So if I run this again, 12, 14, we want to get the sum, we get 26, 15 times 10, we want to get the product, which is 3, we get 150, and so on. So you see how functions are used. So this is where you are going to use functions. In your task again, you are going to use functions. You have the login function, you have the register function, you have the logout function, you have the reset password function, and so on. You are supposed to know what functions are, how to use them, how to call them, how to use them within other functions, how to use them within conditions, and so on. Right? That is it about functions. Functions are very, they are like the backbone of PHP, even before we go to object-oriented programming. At that level, we still talk about functions, but with other names, right? Yeah, that is it about functions. I'm going to push this code right now to GitHub so that git sketches git add, I'm going to add everything and check git sketches, and I'm going to commit new lessons, new lesson files, and okay, add it on GitHub. Oh, sorry, network. Okay, so we have some issues and I'm going to resolve that, and you actually get your code on GitHub, and you can actually test all of these things, right? That is the end of functions. You can actually do a lot of other things